Welcome to Digging Deep, an Ortiz Squared podcast with former Major League All-Star Russ Ortiz and sports writer Jesus Ortiz, and our special guest, John Mozeliak, today, president of the St. Louis Cardinals, the hottest team in Major League Baseball. Mo, what an exciting time to be in St. Louis, to be a baseball fan, and big night tonight in St. Louis. How are you doing?
Well, the last 2 months I've just approached it sort of like day by day, right? And so when people always ask me, how are things going? I just remind them that, we're just worried about today, not thinking much about tomorrow. I mean, obviously, the last few weeks have been really exciting around here to put the run together that we've had. Um, you and I were probably joking 6 weeks ago that we were hanging on for dear life. And now we control our fate, and that's all you can really ask for in this game. And so, long time ago, I always remember learning that trying to make some September count is what's important, and for us, it is. And so, the vibe right now in the clubhouse, how things are going, it's very positive, and it's something that makes last week of baseball very exciting.
When you think of the St. Louis Cardinals, you think of history, titles, 11 World Series titles. I'm sure you're trying to get to 12, obviously. And but when I think of just the last 20 years, the consistency of when the Astros were going to play you guys in the NLCS in the playoffs, but this team, a lot of people, and I know you don't want to talk about that probably, but a lot of people are remembering the 2011 team, and you and I have talked about the 2016 that won the World Series, and the four team that went to the World Series, and the 2005 team that may have been better than the 2014 and the 2016. How do you explain the magic that's going on right now?
Well, I think like in any given year, you're trying to time October to where you're coming in hot. And a lot of different dynamics have to happen. I think back to '04, which is it's an amazing baseball team. Um, but as September was winding down, our starting pitching started to hemorrhage, and so you're going into the postseason where a lot of guys were on fumes. Now the everyday club was healthy; it was banging. If you, as a reminder, you had Pujols, Edman, and Scott Rowland all with 1,000 OPS or higher, and the teams found a way to put up crooked numbers early and usually held on to win. Where in '06, that season we really struggled, but ultimately we ended up being in a position to get healthy that final week of the season, and then for the next 30 days put it all together. And so, as I look at where we are now, I think back to late May, back when we had a bunch of injuries happen. We lost Bader, we lost Flaherty, a couple of our starters, KK and Carlos Martinez. They couldn't get out of the first, and all of a sudden you had this stress point of where we just didn't feel right, and then it carried over into June. June was not a good month for us, but we started to play a little better baseball in July. We thought, look, this could work if we get a few things right. And obviously we made some changes to our bullpen early on in July, which I think, the biggest change there was we just started walking less people. And then, of course, we went into the trading deadline thinking that if we could add a couple veteran stabilizers to our rotation, then we'd have a chance. And, luckily for us, these moves paid off and it's worked, and here we are. But again, this team is clicking right now, and it's a good time to click.
You say luckily, but I'm going to disagree with you. It won't be the first time. It can't continue to be luck with the St. Louis Cardinals when you routinely get it done. A lot of people break up their teams and rebuild because they're in cities that allow it. St. Louis, it's a demanding fan base. They know baseball. And you guys don't tear things down. You just keep chugging along, chugging along. What's your magic formula? How do you guys keep doing it? And I'm gonna point out some moves here in a little bit that you made them. People ridiculed you in St. Louis, and all these guys. All they've done is help you put on the best winning streak in St. Louis Cardinals history. John Lester, Hap. I mean, what was at the trading deadline? What was your reaction when people were, you know, kind of criticizing these moves?
Well, my reaction is like what it is all the time. It's this game. You have to have patience in it because the ebb and flow of a season, so many things occur, and I understand that when you hear like, oh, this team won the off season, it usually doesn't work out well for that team. And then you hear teams that win the trading deadline, and historically, it's a high price to pay to win the trading deadline. In other words, you hope everything you did will pay off. But for us, we knew that if we could make some moves that were on the margins, we knew we had a good team. And what I mean by that is, you have Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado. I mean, we had guys that we felt strongly about. And then you have the emergence of Bader and O'Neill, Tommy Edman. All of a sudden, you're like, okay. And then it's anchored by a guy like Yadier Molina that can make others better. So we thought if we could just add some of that veteran presence, some of that experience that people have been to October would help us, and it has. And so, I compliment Mike Schilt and his staff for keeping it together, never panicking, and look, our patience has been rewarded.
You pick up guys from the Baltimore Orioles, the worst team in baseball. They come to St. Louis and they help. Tell me a little bit about your scouting department. Who finds these guys? Who finds Luis Garcia from the Yankees AAA team?
Yeah,
And
so
guys like 25 in the third scoreless innings. Like nobody could have expected that, but somebody in the Cardinals organizations did.
yeah, so each sort of player transaction typically has its own DNA or own identity. Obviously, we're a very analytical organization, but we also still invest heavily on boots on the ground and scouting department. And so, we try to leverage both, and in a perfect world, we're combining both to make our decisions. But, in Garcia's case, here was somebody that was pitching at AAA for the Yankees, not ever really getting the opportunity to go to the big leagues. He had an out. We identified him as someone that was throwing strikes at the time. Again, our club, we were walking people. Um, Put him in a Cardinal uniform, and got off to a shaky start that first outing. But after that, he's really been a good pitcher for us. And then you look at somebody like McFarland, who another guy that was like throwing strikes, getting ground balls at the minor league level. And so, baseball in a lot of ways is always about opportunity, giving players a chance to play. If they make the most of it, that's on them. If they don't, it's also on them. And so I think in both those cases, they took advantage of it. You brought up LeBlanc earlier. I mean, here's a guy that was bouncing around at the minor league level, but when he entered a team that had experience, had team identity and team maturity, he fit right in. And he gave us some big innings early. Unfortunately, he too got hurt. And ultimately that's what led us to the trading deadline of finding guys like Hap and Lester, because we knew we still had 2 months of baseball left, and every fifth day we're going to need someone to make those starts. And so the thinking wasn't overly sophisticated. It was actually pretty simple because we felt like if we could get some things done on the margins to help us, we had a good enough team to start to win.
You you have a cult sensation, and the Cardinals and the Blues. They always seem to have one of those the outfielder from USC, Lars
Oh, new
Nootbaar.
bar.
I mean, what is up with that? And it, can you tell us a little bit about him and just how the St. Louis, for people, a national audience, for people who may not know what this kid means to St. Louis now?
Well, I think first off, his name is interesting, right? Lars Newt Bar. It almost sounds like a candy bar. So I think it's like, that part is it's simple branding and marketing right out of the box. But he was a player that played at USC, good college performer. someone that was having success at our minor leagues. Of course, as everyone knows on that's listening to this, we had the pandemic last year. He was not part of our alt camp, so he had a year of really no baseball. Took a job, was doing some heavy lifting in his job, so he got himself a little stronger. Was training. Obviously, his last off season during the pandemic, he was using his time well and made the most of it. And he's just an exciting player because when you look at our outfield right now with O'Neill, Bader, and DC Dylan Carlson, it's a pretty good young core of outfielders. But Newt's making some noise when he gets opportunities. I mean, the big thing for him now is to get some at bats, keep playing, keep growing.
And Russ Ortiz, you're listening to Digging Deep, an Ortiz Squared podcast with former Major League All-Star Russ Ortiz, sports writer Jesus Ortiz, and our special guest today, St. Louis Cardinals president of baseball operations, John Mozeliak. Russ, today's is your son's 13th birthday, so you're a little late joining us. Mo, we've
Birthday.
talked a lot about this year's team. So Mo, you're gonna love this story. So I think it was Winter Ball, Puerto Rico. Is it 2006? What year was it, Russ?
Yeah, 2006.
So talk about you making the right moves, Mo. We've been talking about some of the moves that have worked out well this year. So Russ was like an all-star in Puerto Rico, just lights out, throwing 96 miles per hour in Puerto Rico. He talked to Yachty, wanted to sign with the Cardinals. As Russ has told me, most baseball players want to experience St. Louis, want to play for that fan base. And you decided not to sign him. Turns out he ended up getting hurt, so it's probably a good idea that you didn't sign him. but do you remember anything about that offseason, Mo? And did Yachty come to you and say, "Hey, sign Russ Ortiz"?
Yeah, I do remember that. Obviously, Russ, you had an amazing career, and what we were looking to do is find somebody that could help stabilize our club. And coming off of the 04-05 season, the one thing we learned is you never have enough depth because even though those teams are amazing, I mean, I think the strength of those teams obviously was the offense. Anytime you have Pujols, Roland, and Edmonds, you're got a good starting spot. But I just remember always thinking keep adding arms, and Yachty at the time was younger. Now he'd actually just pick up the phone and tell me what to do. Versus back then, it might have been a more subtle play of interest. And as anybody that knows Yachty, he always has the backs of Puerto Ricans, so he's always an advocate for them. But yeah, I mean, obviously, again, I remember Russ's career quite well because he pitched pretty well against us, especially when he was with the Giants.
Yeah, it was interesting because when I signed with the D-backs in 05 and I got a stress fracture in my rib, and the next season, 06, whatever I was doing, looking back, I was like, I know I was protecting my rib. And, it was an injury that none of our trainers ever dealt with. So it was everything was kind of trial by error, and I was scared to hurt myself again. And so I was throwing slow. And I got let go by the D-backs and went to Baltimore with my old pitching coach, Liam Mazzoni. And, it took a couple starts, but then, they kind of put me in the bullpen and said, we just need to figure something out. And so right away, Lee and I got to work on stuff, and pretty quick, he figured out, hey, maybe I think I see something, let's try it out. And then I started throwing, 93 to 97 again. And I didn't really pitch with Baltimore. So I was like, I need innings to be able to get on with another ball club the next season. So I went back to Puerto Rico and then pitched really well, made the All-Star team. We went into the Dominican and played them, and Yachty was a catcher, and I threw really well. And he is asking me which team I was playing for next year. I said I don't have a team, and so that was when he had mentioned that, my first thought was that'd be incredible. I mean, just knowing the history with the Cardinals, playing against you all, and knowing guys that have pitched for the Cardinals or currently did and had pitched in the past and stuff. And so, so that was very, very enticing to me. I was, something I was hoping that was a possibility, but, in the end, I went back to the Giants, but, with, old pitching coach Dave Righetti. But yeah, I mean, I just remember St. Louis going there and being the visiting team. The fans actually treated us great. It wasn't like you're in New York or anything, but I mean, but they love the Cardinals, and it's a great baseball town, great place to play baseball, even for a visiting club. And man, just the support around the town there of every single player. I mean, I think the 25th guy on the roster had, one of those T-shirt jerseys in the, in the merchandise stores, all around town. And I was like, that's some support. That's some great support. And so, I was from the outside, I've always been a great fan of the St. Louis Cardinals and what you all were doing and have done, throughout my playing career. And then now, since I've been done, I'm like, man, you guys continue to compete well. And it's this testament to, I think, all of you, for such a great job that you've done.
Thank you,
Mo. Following up on that, is the fan base? How much do you guys consider the fan base, the future of the organization, the fact that you guys never tear things down? You guys are always playing meaningful games in September, with very, very rare exceptions.
Yeah, so like I would say the simplest point is that we feel like we can't do that. Like that's not an option. I mean, obviously, like if you're on Twitter or following like sort of social media, there's always going to be a subsection of your fan base that's like just blow it up, start over, get better. Because if you don't win the World Series, you failed. But really, I think like our fan base, appreciates a quality product put out there. Of course, they want to get all the way to the end of October and see a trophy raised. But I think like for us, our fans become, so attached to our players. It's tough to just, like give up on someone. And, you look at like tonight, we're playing Milwaukee, for example, like Colton Wong will get a huge ovation just because he's an ex-Cardinal, played here, played hard, and they admire him. And, I think like, look, I've traveled throughout all of baseball. I've been to a lot of different ballparks, but the one thing I'd say about St. Louis is, they're hospitable. They care about the game. They want to see a good baseball game. But to Russ's point, I mean, look, they appreciate other good players too, and so there's that fondness. And so we can't operate like maybe some other organizations can. We have to be a little bit more sort of sensitive or aware of what our roster looks like, and creating a lot of roster churn is something that we find dangerous. I know there's a mentality out there that's the best way to win, but for us, we're sort of steady as it goes.
And I tell you, your rivals, the Cubs. My mother-in-law is a diehard Cubs fan from Iowa, so therefore my youngest. But my oldest became a Cubs fan, was there at the World Series in 2016. My youngest, I'm from LA, she became a Dodgers fan. And at the trade deadline, she was telling her, hey, are you going to keep wearing your Rizzo jersey? and I was like, oh my, this is like a 12-year-old talking trash to a 17-year-old. But I thought of my career and where I've covered, and I thought of, when I covered the Mets, seeing Mike Piazza finish his career with the Mets as opposed to the Dodgers. Then in Houston, seeing Jeff Bagwell, Craig Biggio finish their careers, 20 years and 15 years, all in Houston. And then in St. Louis, Yadi Molina, you guys are going to make sure he plays his entire Hall of Fame career in St. Louis. And Adam Wainwright as well. I mean, it takes a little bit of both sides. When you're negotiating these deals, Jeff Bagwell would tell me, like, yeah, we have to give a little, and Drayden McClain has to give a little so that we're here the rest of our careers. What's that give and take when you're negotiating an extension with Yadier Molina, who means so much to the organization? and wants to finish with the organization.
Yeah, I think like this last negotiation, and I've been quoted as saying, it took about 5 minutes
Oh
from
wow.
start to finish. And the reason it was so quick is because, look, we could have grinded out some of those dollars to maybe be more favorable for us, or maybe it could have gone the other way for him. But reality was, we understood how the story should end. And so, both parties got to it super fast. Um, and really, I think, from an ownership standpoint, from a management standpoint, we recognize how important he's been to this franchise and what he's meant to this organization. And so the worst thing that could have happened would have been where we had some awkward fight over dollars. And the great thing about Yachty was he went into it super realistic, and we honored that, and we didn't debate it. And we thank him for everything he's done for us. And I think next year will be special for him because he's going out on his terms, and he can enjoy that final season knowing that he went start to finish with a franchise that he just adores.
And this is probably one that you probably like address on the edges, but history has shown that you guys made the right decision on the Albert Pujols negotiations. Um, but he's still a beloved player. Some people would love him to finish his career if he plays another year in St. Louis. And I know this. You have had good conversations on. Sometimes columnists write negative things that you think are
Really?
unfair, and then you say, hey, I think this was unfair, or I think this is BS, or whatever. I don't think you ever use BS, but you took a lot of shots during the Pujols negotiations. How thick is your skin, or is it going to mass every day? Does that help you? And in digging deep, Mo, we focus on looking beyond the surface into what makes people tick, what makes successful people so successful, what drives them, what pushes them forward. Like who is John Mozeliak, the person, and how do you deal with the criticism with such a high profile job in a city that revolves around the St. Louis Cardinals?
Okay, that was a mouthful, but
Yeah, sorry about that.
let's start with this, with Mr. Pujols. In fairness, it wasn't that we didn't bring him back; it was he chose not to. Right? Like there was a negotiation, we had offer on the table, but clearly decisions were made, and I certainly respect that decision, and I understand how those unfold. But you ask, how does someone like thick-skinned put up with a lot of negativity? I would say like where we are today in the media world, it's much harder to be like a general manager today than it was 10 years ago or 20. And I think that's partly because of Twitter and these social media feeds, because there's if you get on those, which I'm not on Twitter, but if I were, I think my mental health would be challenged. And so I like to think of myself as thick-skinned. I like to think of myself that I can handle negative criticism, but I think all of us as humans, you can only take so much and not lose your sanity. And you brought up my faith. I mean, as you know, I'm Catholic. I do practice, and I think for me, Catholicism has always just allowed me like that sort of like safe harbor, a place where I can go. I don't have to worry about what people are thinking of me. I don't have to worry about I'm being judged. And as all Catholics know, like if you can go to mass in Florida, New York, California, and there's this commonality to it. And so someone who travels quite a bit, that's been something that I've been able to anchor to in my adult life. And it's something that does help, I think, kind of keep me sort of steady. And when there are difficult times or when it gets a little stormy, that I have that safe harbor to go to and know. So, not preaching, not telling people what to do, but, for me, it was just a comfortable place to be comfortable and feel right at home.
I feel the same way. I've been away from home since 17, and just being able to go to mass every Sunday has made me feel at home. And so I completely understand. Your time's so valuable. I promise you we'd keep you to 30 minutes. Russ, I'll let you ask one final question before we let Mo go. And thank you so much, Mo, for taking this time on a on a busy day, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, the biggest thing, I mean, because of the Cardinals being such a storied franchise, and I did come in a little late, so I apologize if you all covered this, but um, I remember in the years that I got to play against you all and watch you play, there was an aura, or about you all. I mean, there was a lot of confidence that I saw from pretty much everybody on the team. And, you would hear about there's a certain way, the manager, Tony La Russa, wanted things to go, um, how great, Dave Duncan is as a pitching coach. And then, Mike Matheny takes over and anybody that's played with him or against him knows what kind of, grinder he is, what kind of person he is, and how much he wants to win. And so the thing that comes to mind that I'm interested in is, has there been a, St. Louis way of playing baseball? I mean, when you got there, when you were the GM, and then now as you continue to be the president, um, is there a specific St. Louis way that you all do things that has allowed you to have so much success throughout the years? Because I got to play for, the Atlanta Braves, and there was definitely a way they did things that was implemented by one of the main reasons was because of Bobby Cox, and when he was I think GM, and the way they started everything in the minor leagues, and then once he became manager, once I got there, I got to see it in action, and it's a special thing. And so I would say that's what I saw with St. Louis, and I'm just interested in knowing if there's a certain um, way the St. Louis Cardinals do their business on the field.
Yeah, so it's actually a great question, and one that I do get a lot. And I think the most humble way to approach this is to just recognize that the Cardinals have great history, I mean, tremendous history. And so my first year with the Cardinals would have been 1996, which was the same year Tony La Russa was brought in to manage. And I think the one thing all of us would tell you is there was a great infrastructure of having a successful strategy or plan. And I think of names like, Hub Kittle, George Kissel, to name a few of that help sort of create this Cardinal way. And
Right.
then I think, under like someone like Tony La Russa, his ability, his desire, his willingness to win, rather than say it was his way and the only way, he embraced some of these core values that you're seeing that were generationally passed down in the Cardinal organization. And so the one thing I think like front office people sometimes do today is they want their own fingerprints on the team. They want to come in, blow out the past, in with the new, and make it happen. And I think like the one thing that I've learned over my career is, really have great appreciation from your past, try to learn from it, embrace it. Ultimately, obviously, you've got to modernize. This game has changed a lot since you played, Russ, and since I got in it. But, that evolution with recognition of our history and our past, I think allows us to do great things. And so, I feel very blessed and fortunate to have an organization that actually has a history, a steep history, and one that provides us with an amazing foundation to continue to be fun to watch, exciting. But this is deeper than just what you see at the big leagues. It's what's happening at the minor leagues. It's allowing young players to come into a system that actually has a plan, that The curriculum is thoughtful. It's there to help you grow, and like we try to create an environment where Jesus mentioned like how do we do it? Well, we believe in our pipeline. We believe it's important, and we try to promote from within. And young players that are getting drafted or signing in Latin America, and they come over here, knowing that they have a chance to play in St. Louis is probably the single most positive motivation you can give them. But of course, we have a plan and a strategy to get them there. And, a lot of it does fall on their shoulders. But I think because of our history and what we've been able to learn from it has allowed us to be very present today.
Yeah. And I think you speak, I think what you're talking about, having that plan in place within the minor leagues is something that I would say you can see that once your players come up. In the 12 years that I was there, you can see when your players are come up, they're ready to play. And I saw that with the Braves as well. And the Giants, that was the goal with the Giants too. But I really saw it with the Braves is when they called somebody up, they were ready. It wasn't he's still, this guy's still green and we're just going to kind of let him get his feet wet. And it was like, no, this person was ready. And that was impressive to watch. And I would say with you all, it was the exact same thing. Cause I remember looking through scouting reports and all that and not knowing much about some of the guys that you all called up that were new, but then realizing pretty quick, they know what they're doing. And so we better adjust really fast. Or else, we're using those guys as, we don't want to let guys like Pujols or Edmonds or Scott Rowland or those guys beat us. We're going to make these other guys beat us. And then we quickly find out they know how to handle the bat. Yeah, they know how to handle the bat. They're smart. And, and that was the thing too, is that all your players seem to be very baseball savvy and knew how to play, knew how to steal bases, knew how to take the extra base, knew how to read balls, et cetera, et cetera. And, and that's why I asked that question, because I saw it with the Braves. And so I was just interested to find out if you all did have that type of plan, starting from the, time you draft a kid all the way through the minor leagues, getting them ready for the big leagues so that they can come right in and be productive.
We definitely do. We don't always get it right, but we certainly try.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. You've been listening to Digging Deep, an T Squared podcast with former Major League All-Star Russ Ortiz and sports writer Jesus Ortiz, with our special guest today, St. Louis Cardinals president John Mozeliak. Mo, thank you very much. My youngest always gets mad at me because I don't cheer for the Dodgers, and I try to tell her that I know so many people in baseball and grow to have great fondness for people that I can't cheer for the Dodgers when they play the Cardinals or Dodgers when they play the Astros. And you're on top of that list. As you know, I'm excited. I think baseball's better when St. Louis is in the playoffs. I'm excited. I wish you guys luck today. Wainwright's one of the, I didn't want to. You notice I didn't want to jinx it. So Wainwright's pitching today. That'd be one. We always cheer for the best stories, and that would be a great story. Cardinals clinch with Wainwright on the mound today, and Yachty catching them for like the 10,000 game.
It would be cool.
Thanks a lot, Mo. I really appreciate it. We'll let you go. I promised to keep you to 30 minutes, and it's been 37, so I lied yet again. Just put that on my ledger.
All right, boys. Thanks. It was fun.
Thank you very much.
Good catching up.
Thanks.
You bet, Russ. Good seeing you.
Good luck, Mo. Thank you.
Thank you.